Move on to program 7, and this is sort of our Bohemian or Czech extravaganza. We're going to begin with Leos Janáček Violin Sonata from 1914, which is a combination of folk-inspired rhythms and tunes, but it's also incredibly brutal. It was inspired by, well, inspired is the wrong word, but influenced by what was happening in Europe at the time. He says, I could just about hear the sound of steel clashing in my troubled head. So it's incredibly powerful, and Janáček has a really distinctive voice in writing music that cries out. And then we'll move on
Who plays that?
Oh, that's Jen Frautschi and Steve Prutzman.
Oh.
Steve Prutzman is arriving. He's returned.
Yes.
We've convinced him to come back, and he's one of our great favorites. So I think that's Steve's first piece. Thank you for that. Yeah, so Steve Prutzman returns to play the Janáček with Jen Frautschi. And then Jennifer's husband, Eric Rusk, one of the world's leading horn players. He was principal of Cleveland Orchestra when he was 20. He's crazy good. He's going to play an arrangement that he made of Csárdás, which is one of the great Hungarian gypsy violin showpieces. But he's arranged it for horn. So it'll be hilarious and jaw-dropping at the same time. And most of you probably
registers and all that.
Oh yeah, it's all the other crazy slidey stuff. But you know, it's the sort of thing that unless you're Eric Rusk, you just don't even attempt. But it'll be really fun. And then we'll end, speaking of Czech folk rhythms, with the Dvorak bass quintet. So the St. Lawrence Quartet and Tony Manzo playing this super fun. He basically says, "To my nation." Dvorak was so in love with the music and the folk traditions of the Czech, well, it wasn't called Czechoslovakia at the time, but of Bohemia. He lived in Prague. And this piece, almost more than any of his other chamber works, connects to those things. It's remarkably beautiful and vivacious and bubbly and fun. So that ends Concert 7. Now, Concert 8, I will turn my page, and we have the return of Stephen Prutzman, who discovered this young Iranian composer, who he said, "Jeff, we gotta try to commission this guy. He's great, he's young, nobody knows about him. Get him while you can." So we have a world premiere on the next program, a piece written for Steve and Todd, a rhapsody for clarinet and piano, by Hushiyar Kaiman, who, I probably already mispronounced his name, but Hushiyar Khayyam, who I'm going to try to do, well, try to get him on Skype maybe. We couldn't get him over from Iran through London, but I'm excited to have, anytime you can have a world premiere, I think it's a good thing. So creating something new at the festival.
Now, did he decide to write for clarinet and piano?
No, we told him.
You told him.
We want something for Todd and Steve. They're such great old friends, and Todd is always up. Todd Palmer is, well, he's one of my closest friends, but he's also one of the most dedicated and gifted musicians on the planet, and he's always up for anything. So some people, you say, hey, there's this new Iranian unknown composer we discovered, he's going to write something really hard for you, and they would say, no, I'm not doing that. But Todd says, yeah, sure, it'll be great.
That's for me.
Yeah, so
bring it on.
He's so up for that. It'll be really, I mean, it's just fun to be part of something new, and nobody will do it better than Steve and Todd. We're going to open that show, speaking of friends, with Todd and Tara, who are great friends. They live a stone's throw away from each other in New York, with a piece of early Camille Saint-Saëns, a lovely tarantella for clarinet, flute, and piano, with Pedja Mickiewicz, who was here for the whole festival. And then, I love the Bach concertos, J.S. Bach, and there's tons of them in various forms, but this is one of the most evocative and distinctive, violin and oboe concerto, with James Smith, and James Smith is returning. I forgot to mention who's playing all these wind things, but speaking of
he's part of the Windfest.
Windfest party. James will be through the entire festival after his opening, and one of the great young talents on the planet. Well, if you've heard him, you know this, but if you haven't, he's one of the few people that he makes you forget that he's playing the oboe, which is hard to do because it's a very difficult instrument to play, and it evaporates. It becomes pure music. He's incredible. So. He'll be playing the Bach Concerto for Violin and Oboe with Danny Phillips, who is also returning. So that'll be with our party backup band, the St. Lawrence String Quartet, and Pedja and Tony. And then we're going to end...
The rhythm section.
Yeah, the rhythm section It's great fun to do these Baroque concertos, though. I mean, we don't get to play, Baroque music at all for the most part during the year. And the form, the idea of one on a part was pretty much as it would have been a lot of times in the Baroque era. So to use a string quintet, bass, string quartet, and then harpsichord as the backup band for these concertos is pretty authentic in many ways, and also super fun, selfishly, for me and the quartet. And then, speaking of me and the quartet, the St. Lawrence Quartet and Stephen Pretzman will end with the magnificent Eric Korngold piano quintet from 1921. If you know your Korngold, he went to Hollywood. He escaped the Nazis and went to Hollywood and became an incredibly successful film composer. Robin Hood won an Academy Award. But before that, he was one of the great child prodigies in the history of music and was incredibly successful in Europe through the teens and early 20s. And this piano quintet is lush, romantic, distinctively Korngold, but sort of Elgar mixed in, and it's amazingly evocative and virtuosic at the same time.
A lot of his work is, right? That violin concerto.
Violin concerto is a great example. Yeah, it's really, we love Korngold. Another, somewhat similar to Tweel in the fact that great, but not as played often as it should be, in our opinion. So these two piano quintets that.
But he's made a little bit of a comeback lately.
Today, Korngold is coming back. You can go on Amazon. There are lots of records of Korngold. You can't say that about Tweel so much, but Korngold is coming back. He was incredibly gifted. So that quintet will end program 8.